My 30F, X, 34M, abandoned me and my child. I moved on and he didn't. How do I interact with him? This might be a long one, TLR at the end. I met my ex when I was 18 and he was 22. Between then and this year, we did all the things we were supposed to do, except get married. We both didn't want to get married. Maybe that's a separate issue, but we were equally adamant about not getting married. I'm not looking for advice on this decision. We got degrees, we got jobs, we were planning to buy a house, we had a baby, we traveled, adopted dogs, the whole 9 yards. And then things change. He got a super intense job, but a good job. The kind of job our parents would get, where they know they will be able to support their families and retire at 65 with a benefits package. The kind of job where we could travel, buy a bigger house, have all the things we need. It ultimately proved to be too much for him, and, coupled with his deteriorating mental health, he couldn't take it. He disappeared for the first time in February for 3 weeks. I thought he was dead. I called hospitals, filed a missing persons report, contacted his friends and family. It was awful. He eventually came back, and then he did it again. And when he did it the third time, that was the end. I didn't see him again for 6 months. In that 6 months, I got myself together. I lost some weight, started to look for employment. I was mostly taking care of our young child, focused on my daughter and her needs, and just started making better decisions that prioritized me and my child's, lives. Her father dropped off money occasionally, and I started the formal process of filing for child support and custody. This was a hard process because he was not in communication with me and I didn't know what his address was, still don't, to serve him paperwork. Anyways, he came back into our lives this past week, and it's been like reliving all the trauma from before. I don't want to get into the exact trauma, but there was plenty of emotional and just a bit of sexual, physical abuse. He has been going to therapy and has clearly made progress, but I think the next steps for him seem to involve talking to me. I do not want to talk to him at all. I have no interest in rehashing things or making amends, at least not yet. But the thing is, I also want to support his healing. Remember, we have a child together and I know it is in her best interest to have 2 stable parents who are at the very least cordial with one another. If it wasn't for our child, I would just completely block him and have no contact. So my question is, what is the best way to protect myself while also helping him become the best father that he can for my daughter? I know there is only so much that I can do and that his decisions are his own, but I don't want to be a roadblock for his healing and I want to make it clear to him that I have moved on. Last night he asked me for a hug and I told him I wasn't comfortable with that. I'm really trying to set up boundaries, but it's been a challenge because I feel like he keeps breaking them in order to find closure. Too long did not read. My ex who abandoned me with our child has recently come back into our lives and is looking to work on his own healing. I want to protect myself but also help him heal, for the sake of our daughter. You said it yourself. He keeps breaking boundaries. Only, he doesn't do that to find closure. It's a power play. Don't fall for it. His mental health is his responsibility, not yours, and you can't fix him. Accept that, move out of the house and get on with your life, together with your daughter. You may find helpful reading this book. It's about trusting your intuition and setting up boundaries, and this book on abusers and their tactics. Big hugs. Look, your instincts about protecting yourself are spot on. This man vanished 3 times, leaving you to wonder if he was dead while caring for your child. Now he's back wanting hugs and closure. Yeah, right. You're not a roadblock to his healing, you're a mother protecting her peace. His therapy progress? Great. But that doesn't entitle him to emotional access to you. You can support his role as a father without being his emotional support animal. Your daughter's best interest lies in having a mother who isn't constantly depleted by managing her ex's healing journey. Set up parallel parenting through official channels. Keep communication strictly about your child. Period. And his needing closure is manipulation. He has closure. You are willing to compare tea, but that is it, and that your child is your main focus. You're done with him. He just doesn't like that closure. I don't think he's being honest with you. I would think someone who disappears for weeks at a time has been with someone else. He's kept his job, I assume, so he's not totally off the radar. He's been living with someone. Time for you to protect yourself and your child and move on. You should be able to serve him at work for child support. I also want to support his healing. Remember, we have a child together and I know it is in her best interest to have 2 stable parents who are at the very least cordial with one another. If it wasn't for our child, I would just completely block him and have no contact. So my question is, what is the best way to protect myself while also helping him become the best father that he can for my daughter? To put it bluntly, your ex-partner being or not being a good father, his healing, or whatever are not your issues to resolve, let alone support him with. You should limit discussions to child maintenance and request that he only be allowed supervised visits with your child. Until he heals, HMPH. You can't be sure you won't abscond with your daughter. The end. What about your healing? I am sure to get some hate for this, but your daughter's need for a stable father does not override your need for safety from abuse. You do not need to throw yourself on the altar and sacrifice yourself so he can somehow get his shit together. The fact that he won't even provide you with a current address while insisting he be able to contact you shows that this is all about manipulating and controlling you. Probably to get you to take him back so he could start this process all over again. If he was serious about being a decent father, he would accept responsibility, participate in the legal process and respect your boundaries. He can tap into his own resources for his own healing, therapist, family and friends. BF, 31M, hits things, punches things for me. 26F. To hear when we fight, help. Whenever my boyfriend and I get into a fight, he likes to hit things loudly so that I can hear, or he would injure himself and tell me about it after. He says he gets so angry from our fights that he does this. He says that it's normal and it's his way to express emotion and anger. I genuinely get really sad and scared when this happens. Does anyone else have experience with their boyfriends lashing out and hitting things when they get angry? How can I make him stop and get him to understand that this is not okay and makes me scared? He likes to think it's normal because it's his way of expressing his anger emotions. Yes, I had a boyfriend like that once. And eventually, 2-3 years into our relationship, he put me in the hospital with 3 broken ribs, a fractured jaw, which had to be wired shut to heal, and a severe concussion. He thought it was normal too. Unfortunately, you will not get him to stop this behavior. It's who he is. The only thing that stopped mine was the police with pistols drawn. The neighbors called them. And good thing they did, because he certainly wasn't going to stop on his own. Proceed with caution. First, inanimate objects. Second, you. He's an abusive jerk who is choosing not to control himself. He is choosing to lash out like this, to scare you and intimidate you. Dump his ass. It doesn't matter how good the sex is, or how much he claims he loves you. He's an abusive jerk, and you deserve someone who values you for you. Dump him, and get advice from a domestic violence hotline first, to make a safety plan. You're in physical as well as emotional danger, as would be any pets you have or possessions you care about. Displays of violence are considered abusive. I'd be planning the breakup now. It's not normal to be scared of your boyfriend. It is not normal to punch things when angry. Unless he is willing to go to anger management, it's in your best interest to leave before it becomes you. This is abuse. It's a form of intimidation. It usually escalates to him throwing things at you or hitting you directly. This is not normal and your boyfriend should go to a therapist or anger management treatment. Or you should leave. I, F26, don't want to take my fiancé's, M28, last name. Does anyone have advice? I'm F26 and my fiancé is M28. We've always had an amazing relationship, but suddenly he has an issue with me not wanting to take his last name. Even though he's known since we started dating. My family are Indonesian and his are English. His family haven't treated me the best and they've been at times in-laws from hell. So I haven't wanted to take his last name, purely because I don't feel part of their family and wouldn't want to take a name that I'm not proud of. We've had issues due to them but never issues between us as we've always been a team, so I've made it clear from the beginning that I wouldn't want to have a last name from a family that have called me names and put me down. On the other hand, my last name reflects my culture and I really don't want to lose that part of me. It took me so many years to not be ashamed of my Asian culture after so much bullying that I want to keep it. My mom is English and my dad is from Asia. And I am an only child, so I'm the only one keeping my last name on here in the UK. There's something about that just makes me want to keep my heritage alive and teach my future kids the same too. My fiancé has now told me it might be make or break, but that he also wants compromise because he just wants to be traditional. I understand it might mean loads to him, but for the past 4 years he's never had an issue with it. Sad face. Any advice would be great. By the way, I'm already hyphenated and my surname is quite long. Probably because his parents are just now being informed that you won't take his name. He's giving you an ultimatum. Call his bluff, and if he sticks to that ultimatum then he isn't deserving of you anymore. I'd tell him it's simply not happening. Your last name isn't a compromise, it's your name. He's welcome to change his own. So many things become shared assets in a marriage, this is not one of them. Your fiancé sounds problematic. He lets his family treat you poorly and has decided after years of you explaining your intentions of wanting to maintain your culture and identity, he has decided to change his mind and threaten the end of your relationship. This is obviously not about wanting to have the same name as his spouse because he could offer to change his name. I would think long and hard if you want to marry into a family that treats you poorly and to a person who has changed his mind to make you take the name of a family who treats you badly as mandatory for marriage. If it's traditional for both married people to have the same last name, he gets to change his. He wants the tradition, so the onus and effort to uphold the tradition should fall on him. Problem solved. Don't take it. It's as simple as that. I am 61 and I have never taken a man's name. How do I, 31F, handle my awful sister-in-law, 33F, at my boyfriend, 30M's family Christmas? My, 31F, boyfriend, 30M, and I have been together for 3 years. We have gotten to know each other's families quite well as we live nearby and can visit often. I love my boyfriend's family, except his brother's, 33M, long-term girlfriend, 33F. Called her sister-in-law for simplicity in the title. Let's call my boyfriend James, his brother will be Mike, and his brother's girlfriend Kelly. Kelly and Mike have been dating for 5.5 years. I truly believe she is well-intentioned, but oh my god, she's freaking terrible to be around. I get along with almost everyone I meet, but being around her actively makes feel like I'm losing brain cells. We are polar opposites, but that's not why she's terrible. She makes wildly inappropriate comments to everyone around her, has no sense of self-awareness, and thinks the world owes her something. Kelly and Mike are not in a good financial position. Kelly is unable to work because of her traumatic childhood and Mike works 50+ hours per week in construction. He busts his butt to provide for them, and she spends her days at the local bar with the local riff-raff, then complains about not being able to afford to buy a 3-bedroom 2-bathroom home on several acres of land in our HCOL state. For Christmas, my boyfriend's parents are hosting celebrations and we are doing a small gift exchange with a max budget of $10 per person, and then everyone drew a name from a hat and we get that person one gift of up to $50. Total spend is $100 each. So, everyone gets one big gift and a couple of small things. At first, we had no budget, but Mike was concerned about being able to participate, so we set a budget and James slipped Mike $200 so he wouldn't have to worry about it. It's not Secret Santa, so everyone knows who drew which name. James drew Kelly's name, and immediately she started sending him links to things that were $100 plus for him to get her. He reminded her of the budget that we set, to benefit them, and she said, "You can afford it, these are the only things I want." And made it worse by saying, "Mike drew your name, and we're getting you something nicer than $50. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she may not know James gave Mike the $200 to help them out. She hounded James about it being unfair that they suffer while we have so much, so clearly he can afford to get her a nicer gift. Both James and I are very comfortable, but we've both worked hard for everything we have." She insulted him, called him greedy, told him that he's selfish and only cares about himself and the fancy life he lives with me, and that Mike and her resent him for abandoning them. James is the kind of person who would give his last dollar away, the shoes off his feet in a snowstorm, and who acts tough but is actually just a big softie. A lot of people take advantage of that. And he caved. He got her the fancy over-budget gift. James and Mike's parents just kind of roll their eyes at her when she makes weird inappropriate comments, and their mom has confided in me that she's happy at least James picked a normal one, and that she's glad she doesn't have to take care of both of her sons into adulthood. They are completely unaware of what's happened behind the scenes between Kelly and James. I'm not afraid of confrontation, but don't want to ruin Christmas by losing my shit at her. She's bound to say something or do something because she always does, and I really don't know if I can bite my tongue much longer. I am furious at her. I feel like I'm going to explode if she makes one offhanded comment or snide remark that I'm betting it'll only take 20 minutes for her to say something stupid. It's not about the gift. We don't care about the money. To me, this is icing on the cake of her already poor behavior. To James, it's just another thing he wants to let slide because he loves his brother and it makes Mike's life easier if Kelly is happy and not complaining. How can I navigate this and stop her from taking advantage of James in the future? Talking to her rationally is futile. James did try that and that's how we're here. Whenever she says something stupid, reply with a simple, "What an odd thing to say," and walk away. You can omit the odd part when it doesn't fit the statement. Return her gift and buy her a gift within the price range. If she throws a tantrum, just say, "The budget was for everyone," and placed specifically so that nobody would throw a tantrum. Stop being silent like that, you and James. Tell James to tell his brother what Kelly said about the gift and how Miles supposedly resents you too. When she says something inappropriate, say, "That's insensitive, weird, ill-advised to say." Just because she is dumb like a rock doesn't mean you should let her bully James around. And given how she's acting, I think you are too kind with giving her the benefit of the doubt when it comes to being well-intentioned. I think she just does not care about how other feels. What matters is how she feels. Your boyfriend shouldn't have caved. What will he do when he marries you? Will sister-in-law continue to get her way? I'm sorry, she doesn't work because of a traumatic childhood? My husband and I both carry a lot of trauma for the worst reasons you can imagine, and we both work. I think you have our permission to say something. Honestly, I would have cut right in and say, no, James and I are sticking to the budget. Keep it up and you get nothing. Gray rock method. Shell say some annoying and unpleasant shit. You'll be irritated.